Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time I'm playing in the Tier 8 Chinese Premium Medium Tank, the T-34-3. Well, shall I say, one of the Tier 8 Chinese Premium Medium Tanks, and that's because there are now 3 at Tier 8. The Type 59, a vehicle which you can no longer really get your hands on. Now the Type 59 Pattern, I believe, a vehicle which does not have preferential matchmaking, and the T-34-3, which is very similar to a T-34-2 as if it was using the 120mm gun, a vehicle that does have preferential matchmaking. Now this vehicle has been in the game for a long time, 3 years to be exact, and when it came into the game I really didn't like it. It was probably one of the first Tier 8 premium tanks, and it was one of the first Tier 8 premium medium tanks. I really didn't like at all. I hated the aim time, the 3.4 seconds aim time, the horrific accuracy of 0.46. I despised the rate of fire. At that point, I think it fired 4 rounds a minute. It had awful DPM, and it just really didn't suit my playstyle. And also 3 degrees of gun depression, which was just absolutely awful. Meant that you couldn't work ridgelines, even ridgelines as shall we say, as shallow as this. You couldn't work really with the T-34-3, and so it just lay in my garage, pretty much doing nothing. I'd occasionally bring it out when it was voted for. And do you know what, at one point, I think a couple of years ago, when I started to do the polls on my stream, I thought this was a bit of a troll kind of tank that people would vote for me to play, and they would vote for it out of spite, going, ha ha ha, we're going to make him play the T-34-3 today. And do you know what? Since then, the vehicle has received a lot of buffs, and now this vehicle came into the game, as I said, 3 years ago in patch 8.8, and then I believe in patch 9.3, the vehicle received a nice rate of fire buff, 7.5% to be exact. Now when you just flat out buff a tank's DPM by 7.5%, that is very significant. And also, Wargaming improved the hidden gun bloom of the tank. The gun dispersion on this vehicle was improved. And so now, actually, it has the same gun dispersion as the Type 59, and even better turret traverse dispersion than the Type 59, which is really, really nice when you think about it. Now, fair enough, the Type 59, it's got 2.9 seconds aim time, and this vehicle has 3.4, so all round you do have to aim longer. But what do you expect when you've got this whopping 122mm gun on this vehicle? Now, of course, since then, it doesn't feel quite so special, since the M4 Revolverise is in the game as well, with that 105mm gun that also does 390 alpha damage, just like this 122mm. But the Revolverise does not have preferential matchmaking, which means that you quite often have to meet tier 10 tanks. And also, the armor and the profile on the Revolverise is absolutely horrific, whereas the T-34-3, it's got okay frontal hull armor, 90mm on the hull. It's got awesome turret armor as well. And do you know what has happened recently that has made you be able to use the turret armor on this vehicle more than ever? In patch 9.13, they buffed the gun depression of this tank from 3 degrees to 5 degrees, which is pretty much the standard for most Soviet medium tanks. Of course, the Type 59 is slightly higher, but that's special. And I should mention that this isn't a Soviet medium tank, obviously, but I'm just drawing the conclusion that if you're comfortable using the T-62A, for example, then you're now going to be comfortable using the T-34-3's buffed gun depression. And so I figured out, hey, I might as well give it another couple of goes right, and I've actually been really enjoying this tank recently. Putting in those big derpy 390 alpha damage shots just feels awesome. And when you have the preferential matchmaking on this tank, then you get up into matchmaking like this more often than not, really. I'd say that on average, obviously you're going to get matched up, but half your games as top tier, probably half your games against tier 9 tanks. Or probably maybe more like a third against tier 9, maybe a third against quite low tier tanks such as this, and a third of them where you're having to deal with maybe quite a few tier 8s and mostly tier 7s on the enemy team. But when you're in a matchup like this, it just makes the armor of the T-34-3 better. It just makes those big 390 alpha damage shots a lot more significant as well and damaging to your opponents. Now, one thing that's very important about this replay is obviously we're attacking on San River, as that means that we have to kill all the enemies or take their base. And I saw that the situation was starting to get rather grim as well. Well, get rather grim indeed, I should say. Our team were pushing in along the east, and I thought that unless I'd made a push into the middle of the map and took some pressure off my team, because the STA-1 would undoubtedly turn round and shoot all of my friends in the side as they came round the corner, that we would probably lose this one. So I put one into the STA-1, but unfortunately he turned around and put a good shot into me and then put another one. And now we've got a very dangerous Soviet tank destroyer that's doing a bit of a waltz in front of me. The STA-1 bounces a shell off behind. I go and face hug the dangerous Tier 7 Soviet tank destroyer to avoid his shell, and then get ready to load to take him out, but the STA-1 drives just in front of me. And I'm going to rear hug him and try and get my frontal arm around. I believe the Comet finishes off the Su-122-44 behind me, and that allows me to finish off the STA-1. So I guess I should give a big thank you to the Comet who's working that ridgeline up there with his 12 degrees of gun depression, something that this vehicle certainly is envious of. So there's no doubt that I'm quite lucky to get through that situation, but I felt like it was necessary. I needed to go in and play the top tier tank, because I think that if I just chilled and relaxed, and that STA-1 would probably have been dominating that position. As I've talked to you guys before in one of my videos where I was highlighting the most important locations on Sand River, this little position here, if you can hold it in a medium tank, you get excellent shots across this way. You can also turn around and stop your opponents from advancing in along this location, and that's not forgetting all of the amazing vision that you'll be putting out over here. So now this is a very interesting bit of gameplay coming right up. I use coated optics in my T-34-3 to extend the view range, and now you'll notice that I don't get spotted when I shoot there. And so what that tells me about the enemy's Scorpion is that he does not have coated optics, because he was driving when I fired. So now I've tracked him and set him on fire. Now he's stationary, and I don't want to move my tank because I'm still not spotted. But it's very likely that he's using binoculars on that tank, so I don't fire. So you might be thinking, why? Because obviously when he's stationary, his binoculars are active. If I'd fired, I would have lowered my camera rating and most likely been spotted by the Scorpion, which would have allowed him to shoot me, or alternatively the IS in position on the mid-ridge to gun me down, or the artillery to hit me. And so I waited until the Scorpion was now moving, where therefore his binoculars would not be activated, and so I could put a shot into him for free without getting spotted. It looks like, unfortunately, however, when he came close enough to me that he did manage to spot me, or alternatively the IS caught a glimpse at me. So now I'm going to reverse my way down the slope to get into position, hopefully only exposing my turret armor to the IS, and I finish him off. And one thing I will say is that during this replay I was quite fortunate with where some of my shells went. You might have noticed my first kill on this game on the MT-25. Looks like my crew was certainly quite fortunate today, as we did take out that Tier 6 Soviet light tank, and it was almost a homing missile towards the opponent there. So we've managed to grind through both of the top tier tanks on the enemy team, and now all that's left is an M4A3E2. And you'll notice that as he was advancing down that slope, he was giving it a bit of a wiggle, which meant that the .46 accuracy and awful aim time on this tank, and I missed the shot. Unfortunate there, because I'm also trying to avoid the artillery, and so that's why I'm using this little alcove right now. This alcove should protect me from the artillery, who's likely to be over in this location. And so I'm basically trying to just spot the M4. Oh, can you believe that premium round, the heat, 250 millimeters of penetration bouncing off that Tier 6 medium tank there. But you know what, that Assault Sherman, it does have very good hull armor. So the Lorraine's trying to sneak up behind him. I'm just hoping that somebody manages to put a shell into him. Looks like he's going to not come around the corner, but instead bust his way through the wall. We seem to react faster than he does, finish him off, and can you believe it, the artillery's trying to sneak around us. So our 6th kill of the game, 5,000 damage. I just want to avoid getting interrupted by the artillery right now because there's only a minute left on the game. And when I see that the artillery takes a swing and a miss in mine, that means that I can harass him indeed. Now, I guess I make a little bit of a misplay here. I probably could have rammed into him to reset the cap. And so what that means is that, in fact, the M40-43 survives at the end of this round. So perhaps a little bit of a misplay by me at the end of the game. I could have rammed myself into the self-propelled gun to probably take him out. I was just worried about the small amount of hit points I had left, looking like a muppet with a minute left on the game. And you know what? I was just happy to take down this win and finally have an awesome round in the T-34-3. So what a fantastic result here. 178,000 credits. That's not for an event. That's 140,000 credits profit. This thing just prints money. Although I will mention that the ammunition is fairly expensive in this vehicle. Even though you saw me fire a couple of heat rounds, the standard ammunition still is over 1,000 credits a shot. So this was my first ever ace tanker in the T-34-3, and I finally nail it. I've come close so many times. But we also get a high caliber medal for the 5,499 damage that we did, an Invader Medal for capping out, and also a Top Gun for securing the 6 kills, 1,883 base experience points, and we also managed to do some damage upon detecting this game, 2,227 to be exact, showing you the importance of a medium tank working the mid-ridge on Sand River Assault. So the T-34-3, it's definitely a vehicle that you might want to give another go, especially if it's been sitting in your garage and you were just so frustrated by the horrible rate of fire, gun dispersion, and 3 degrees of gun depression. You know what, I think, considering this vehicle does have preferential matchmaking and never has to meet tier 10, it's actually in a pretty good place right now. And after the whole series of buffs that this tank has received over the last few years, I think it's gone from a tank that you would have to be a raving lunatic or maybe a masochist to play to, you know what, quite a good credit maker in the end. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider giving it a like. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about the T-34-3, especially now with 5 degrees of gun depression. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.